The 1998 Toyota Supra Mark IV is quite possibly the most overrated car in the entire car community, and this is coming from someone who hates using the word overrated. When people think of the Supra, they think of what is basically, along with the R34, the god car of the JDM community. An absurdly fast beast of a car that will slay any filthy gaijin in sight with the superior Nippon steel folded over 1,000 times used in its construction, which give it unmatched power on the drag strip and unparalleled agility on the track. However, this is, of course, very far from the truth. In reality, the Mark IV Supra wasn't that good, at least not for what you might think it was. It was big, heavy, cumbersome, and not actually as absurdly fast as most people make it out to be. But this is because the Toyota Supra series were never designed to be fully fledged sports cars in the first place. They were Grand Tourers, which is a fancy way of saying a sports car with a bit of luxury sprinkled on top of it. Basically, think of the Supra as a Japanese Aston Martin Vantage. You wouldn't take one to the track, but you sure as hell would love to have one during a long relaxing drive through a country road. All of this is, of course, regarding the Supra in its stock form. And although one might say that none of it is valid, because of how much you can tune the 2JZ to handle absurd amounts of boost and reach the magic 4 digits of horsepower, or how you can tweak the suspension to make it less of a boat during the corners, the final red pill is that just about every car can be made quick with enough time and money spent on making modifications to it, and as such, it is not fair to compare cars in such a state. In Horizon 4, the Supra reflects its real-life counterpart quite well, as the only good thing about this car is the fucking engine. Admittedly, it's a very well-balanced car in A-class, however, it's so well-balanced that it's just boring to drive, and we don't want that. If you're here to drive the Supra, you're here to boost the shit out of it until you reach the magic 4 number horsepower digit, and luckily for you, we at Purple Guy Studios have managed to achieve such features at the cost of the driver's survivability, of course, as this thing is arguably even more of a death trap than the TVR. But just like an abusive relationship, I know you'll keep coming back for more. Because although this car is by no means competitive or safe, it's extremely fun to drive, and to teach you how to deal with automotive domestic violence, we have brought here our studio's professional racing driver. Some say the real reason why he's a skeleton is because the skull is better at hiding how concerned he is every time he's on set. All we know is he is. Sans from Undertale. Let's watch. Before teaching you anything about driving this car, you should first know that this is definitely not for beginners. If you're new to Forza or racing games as a whole, this car is definitely not for you, but this is not to say that you shouldn't drive it at all, as if you don't have a little thing called throttle control. I can assure you that this coffin of a car will teach you it for sure, as you won't get anywhere without it. With this said, when you're approaching a corner, brake and start to downshift. You should brake a bit earlier than what the racing line tells you to, as this car is very heavy and you won't be able to take advantage of engine braking as much as other cars. This is because you will only downshift down to third for even the slowest corners, as second gear is nothing but wheel spin, and even third is stretching it a little. As you're making your way towards the apex, feel free to apply just a bit of throttle if you think it's necessary to, but since just the slightest hint of acceleration can make you instantly lose grip, be very careful in doing so, or just don't do it at all. Once you're past the apex, start to slowly step on the accelerator, and when I say slowly I really do mean it, as if you just floor it like a retard. I can assure you that you'll get wheel spin and lose grip. I think I've made it very clear that this car's biggest weakness is the amount of power it has, which makes it the world's heaviest bar of soap on the corners. However, this thing is a fucking rocket on the straight. It has the speed of an S2 car, but in S1. So as long as you take care and don't make any mistakes in the corners to lose as little time as possible in them, I assure you this thing's raw power will get you some high finishes, unless it's in a bad mood and decides to kill you. Now that you've mastered all of this, it's time to move on to the car itself. Thank you for showing us how to drive, Sans from Undertale. For this rather special long-awaited Longboy, I will be giving you 2 tunes in a single video, A-Class and S1, so let's get right into it. First off, as a true car enthusiast, we have to begin by getting the most important modification of them all. Go to your rear bumper and get that fat fucking exhaust before I torch your house down. Now for the less important stuff. As any sensible man should do, start by getting race tires and making them as thick as you can on the back. Next up, increase your track width, and then, for drivetrain, get a race clutch, transmission, and differential. We'll come back for the driveline later, and I really mean it this time. Get race brakes, suspension, and anti-roll bars, followed by race weight reduction. For the people looking for an A-Class Supra, this is where your tune ends, so just dump the rest of your PI into what little power you can get, and fast forward to the tuning section of the video. Alternatively, you could drop your race tires and get sport instead, but in my opinion the car is well balanced as it is. Anyways, if you're here for the S1 build, then it's time to get the bread and butter of the tune. Go to your engine and get the golden trio of parts: race camshafts, turbos, and exhaust, followed by race pistons. Now this is where things start to get different, as usually we would dump power into the car until it hit the PI of 900, but this thing has so much horsepower already that even more would just make it worse, so go back to platform and handling, and get a sport roll cage, or race, if you don't mind how it looks, followed by the best front tires you can get. And finally, for the finishing touch, get a race flywheel, followed by a visit back to the drivetrain to get the best possible driveline. Now that your ballistic cruise missile with 4 wheels attached to it is ready, it's time to pick a favorable target. If you decided to go with the A-Class build, then for gearing, adjust your final drive towards acceleration until your top speed is 175 miles per hour, or 280 kilometers per hour. But for the S1 build, you may adjust your final drive to a whopping 225 miles per hour, or 360 kilometers per hour. This is S to speed in an S1 car. Insane. The rest of this segment can be applied for both cars, so for alignment, get 0.12 out at the front and 0.12 in at the back. For ride height, lower it by 1 tick, and then tune your braking force pressure to 90% so that your brakes don't lock up. And lastly, for your differential, lower your acceleration to 40% and your deceleration to 10%. And that's it. If you feel like all of that was too complicated, you can just download the tune from my Forza storefront. My gamer tag is Flamethrower XXX. Now that you're ready to absolutely demolish Toyota's reputation simply by driving one of their cars in a video game, go get some podium finishes. And remember that somehow, somewhere, there are people out there who think these tunes are meant to be competitive, while I'm sitting out here literally teaching you how to build a rear-wheel drive car with over 1000 horsepower. The Supra, of course, would be a much better car in S1 if it were all-wheel drive swapped. However, that would just remove all of its personality, as it would just handle like virtually any other car in the game, and not the crazy, hard-to-tame beast that Forza has blessed us with. Also, if you want to drive an all-wheel drive car with an inline-6 twin-turbo in S1, you've already got 3 fucking Skylines to pick from. You utter buffoon. Goodbye and thank you for watching.